Hi, good day. Welcome to UX Design webinar series, session 1. So what is UX design? Let's start by defining UX, which stands for UX, user experience. Design, on the other hand, means design to create, fashion, execute, or construct according to plan. So what is UX design? UX design is basically a research method, the scientific method to research that guides you to answer the following things. Number one, what problem or business opportunity you should tackle and solve. How will you solve the problem using the tech and or other resources that you have? Why? Why should you and potential investors care about the problem you are solving? Who are you designing for? That is what UX design answers. Now you might be thinking, why look for a problem? Can't I just make a web app service and anything that I want? Well, you can. No one's going to police you and tell you, you're not starting with a problem and making your web applications. But I will give you a good reason why you should start with a problem. Why find problems to solve? So here are investor presentation slides of some tech companies. I went to a website, I look at the investor pitch slides of some tech companies. I copied the content and I pasted it here in my PowerPoint, in my Google slide rather. So let us start by presenting to you the problem solution slide of Airbnb. If you haven't heard about Airbnb, this is their problem slide. The first problem is price is an important concern for customers booking travel online. Hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. There's no easy way exits to book a home with a local or to become a host. The solution of Airbnb was to create a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers too. For example, I went to Japan. I used Airbnb to instead of finding me a hotel, I'll be staying inside the house of a local Japanese person. So meaning I was able to save money when I was traveling because I don't need to spend much on a hotel. The person that was hosting me was able to make money, and I was able to experience the local culture of the town by being connected to a local. Another example, Uber, the ride sharing app. Way back the way back 2000 or to 2009, they presented this. During that time, the cab or riding service was they used most use aging and inefficient technology, and hailing is done by hand or phone. There was phone already. But what Uber offered is that they offered a fast and efficient on-demand car service that we all know and love today. It offered the convenience of a cab and the experience of a professional chauffeur, meaning it's a driver, professional driver. During that time, Uber cars were really um, beautiful, and the driver was professional, very professional. So I hope those two good examples gives you an idea why it's so important to start with a problem first before building a web platform. Now, we will choose a field to focus. For this webinar, I choose education. But you can, those who are watching this from YouTube, because this is a pre-recorded video as well, you can choose any problem that you want. Now, when we're looking for a problem, there are two options. We can do a primary research and a secondary research. You might be thinking, what's that? What's a primary research? What a secondary research? What's the difference between them? Okay, when you say primary research, this is the research that you or your team executed on your own. For example, you are on a team and you conducted an interview. You interviewed people who are involved in the education sector, students, parents, teachers, administrators, interviewed them. You got the answers, you executed the interview yourself. No one outside of the team did it for you. That's what we call as a primary research. You can do interviews, surveys, any form of data collection that you executed yourself is a primary research. There's what we call secondary research. When you say secondary research, it's the research that is outsourced or referred to a research done by someone outside the team. For example, you look for a thesis, an article, or journal from a scholarly website or reputable source. You use that as a reference for your research, meaning you did not conduct the research yourself. You're just reaping the rewards from the results from that research. And it is advisable that you start with that first. You start with secondary research. We look for an article that can support your, that can already give you a step forward in researching on that field. For example, I searched for this literature review on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on teaching and learning. And one of the lines from that research that spoke to me, that kind of encapsulated the content of the whole research, is that the need of the hour is to innovate and implement alternative educational system and assessment strategies. So that will be the basis, the rock that the research will be based upon. Our UX design will be based upon. And then after that, I conducted an interview and surveys about the problem at hand. I conducted an interview with students and collected data. Now, for those who are watching this from YouTube, this is a pre-recorded video. I suggest that you conduct your own interview first. But before you do that, I will teach how to compose a basic idea how to compose interview questions for UX design. When doing an interview, you don't ask participants with leading words. Okay, for example, don't use positive words. Now, look over here. What are you happy about with the current way that your school and teachers are delivering education and assessments during the pandemic? I use the word happy here. What makes it wrong? When you add happy, you guide the interviewee, the person that you're interviewing, to focus more on the positive aspects of the experience of learning. That's where they will try to find a happy feeling because you started with that. On the other hand, if you use a negative feeling like disappointed, you will be focusing more on the negative. Sometimes this could be misleading because what we want to do is we want them to just blurt out what comes first into their mind. So where you are supposed to use neutral words. For example, here, what are your feelings? So I'm just asking them what are their feelings about the current way that your school and teachers are delivering education and assessments during the pandemic. So that's how. I would like to remind everyone that, especially those who are watching this from YouTube, that I am just summarizing the process. There is more to this than just simply putting positive or negative words. There's just more to that. I will probably dive deep into those for the next coming videos, but for the sake of encapsulating everything, I'll just compress everything to this. Usually, in the webinar, I will present it to the participants, but I omitted some of the names and specific details of the respondents for the sake of privacy. So if those who are watching this from YouTube, please, when you are interviewing, always remember the privacy of the person that you interviewed. Okay, we don't want to put them in a compromised position where where they will not be comfortable. Okay, so always protect their identity. So I won't be sharing to YouTube the the responses that they had, but since I'm encouraging you to do your own interview, I'm reminding you, please take care of the personal information of the people that you're interviewing. Next, persona. What's a persona? A persona is grouping together similar respondents and creating a person out of it. For example, I conducted an interview. I noticed that most of them had a similar response. Their responses revolve around the same thing. For example, here, most of them thought that the current education landscape should let go of the traditional way of teaching and be open for new ways of learning. So what I did, I grouped them together and I created a person out of that. And you might be thinking, why? Why did you do that? Why did you crafted a person out of the data? Why can't you just present the data as it is? The purpose of this is because when you present this data to web developers, to software engineers, there's more impact when you make it, when you humanize the data. They can um, they can relate to it better, and because as if they're really working on a human being. Now, I would like to remind you that the name John Fernandez is fictitious, but the data inside here are are based on real things, real information that I was able to collect. So you can use this, you can pause the video, you can copy my format for a persona. There are other formats for personas in the web. You can also use that. Now, what I suggest is that when you have your data, you look for respondents who have similar answers and create a person based on those participants. In the webinar that I conducted, I placed a 10-minute limit because of course we're limited by time. But you, of course, since you're doing this on your own, it's up to you how long it will be up to you. Okay, user journey map. So after creating a persona, we'll be creating what we call as a user journey map. In a user journey map, we'll be mapping out the process that the user is using or interacting with a service slash product. For example, here, I created a table. It shows the person name, the activity, the user goal, and the pain point. Now, for you to understand this further, I will share here a, where is it? A sample. So here's a sample that I made. You can screenshot this on your, okay. So I created what we call as a user journey map. In the user journey map, let's see if I can zoom this so that if you're using this from your phone, okay, there. I hope you can see it. So in the user journey map, let's try to make it bigger. There. So in the user journey map, everyone, I made a table. For example, here, it's the same table, but I put items inside. Here, first, I type the first row on the heading row, type the name of my persona. And then on the next row, on this column, on this data cell, I type activity and I type the information. This is what the persona John Fernandez, or usually most teachers, are going through when during their teaching. They prepare the lesson and the topic, and then underneath that we have the user goal. So these are the goals why they're doing that. For example, underneath prepare the lesson and topic, underneath that is the goal to that is do it efficiently, the teaching process. So that's the goal. And then underneath, we have called as the pain points. When you say pain points, that's the challenges, the obstacles that the user come to face. But here, I did not put because there's no pain points yet here. So where do I usually get the pain points? I get it from the mock data, the information that was consolidated. So we have this, for example, here on the step 1, after preparing the lesson and the topic, they make PowerPoints, videos, and modules. And then the user goal is make quality instructional materials before the start of class. And then this time there's a pain point. So the pain point is it's time consuming. Okay, I based this from my interview on my research. And then according to most of the respondents under the persona of John Fernandez, they said that when you're preparing modules, PowerPoints, it takes a lot of time. So that's how you draft. And then step 3, submit to head for review. User goal, the head approves the lesson. There's no pain point. And then as we go ahead, they deliver to students. Students absorb lesson, and there's another pain point again. So that's how you draft this. Okay. So let us move forward. Now, the webinar that I conducted, I gave them 5 minutes to plot out the user journey map for each of their personas. And I asked them to check their work. So that's the purpose. That's the what we call this, the benefits of a live session. What I did is there was an activity. As much as possible, I wanted to have some interactivity because I believe that learning should be a two-way process, not just someone talking through a video. And then over here, after that, we had what we call as how might we questions. So what are how might we questions? How might we questions, or HMW questions, are used to define a problem based from the user journey map. We need to, for example, we type how might we, or you write how might we, and then we connect the remaining words there to form a question. But here's a general rule when creating a how might we question. Number 1, it should not be too broad. Okay, for example, how might we improve education? That is too broad. It caters to a lot of things, and the UX team, UX designer, might have a hard time thinking of solutions into this problem if there's so many things to think about. Next, how might we question should not be too specific. For example, how might we make an app for art education in the grade 7 level during classes about painting for the purpose of remote learning? Ito ang dami. It was focused on a certain subject, on a certain grade level, on a certain topic. It was too specific that we might miss out. We won't have enough flexibility of ideas if this is too exactly pinpointed. There should be some middle ground. For example, how might we make the production of instructional materials faster and more effective? More effective, rather. Now, how did I came up with this how might be question? So we go back to our user journey map, and then I'm going to zoom this in again for those who can't see, who are using their phones. So underneath here on step 2, making PowerPoint user goal, time consuming. Making PowerPoints, preparing resources for a class takes so much time. It's easy to make a PowerPoint. You can type things, you can put pictures, but when the planning that goes into it, even if it's just a 10 slide PowerPoint, that takes time because um, unless you just copied someone else, you had a reference already, there's already a pre-made PowerPoint that you can just change a little bit, that will be easy, but no, it won't be as easy. And it's not just the PowerPoint, the videos, the lesson itself, the resources that you need to create, it's really time consuming. So let us view our screen. Okay, so that's where I got this question. So what I did in my webinar is I asked the participants, so based on the pain points of the user, draft at least 3 HMWs within 5 minutes. And again, I set a time limit because we were on a limited time only, and I only wanted them to have an overview of the process. Later on, I will be probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, I might be releasing a couple of videos deep diving into each of the processes as a UX designer. Then I asked them to show their work, and I'm going to check the HMWs that they made. I asked them to choose one of the HMW questions as a problem focus. In an actual UX team, they will probably do votes, or some might present, they might even do a qualitative argument, like presenting more data information, why this certain HMW might be of more importance than the other HMWs. So you could also do that if you're in a UX team. You present evidence why this should be chosen. But for the webinar, I just asked them to choose one. Next, we did what we called as a crazy eight. So I asked them to get a piece of paper, to fold it. Okay. I will be removing the share. So for example here, you get a piece of paper, you fold it in the middle, you fold it again, and then you fold it again. And when you open it, it's roughly divided into 8 parts. So this is what we call as the crazy eights, where what you do within 8 minutes, you sketch and write 8 solutions for your HMW question. Now, this time limit, this is not a time limit that I just imposed on them for the sake, because of the webinar is short. No, it is actually just 8 minutes, hence the name Crazy Eights. And then because of the time limit, you are forced to produce as many ideas as you can within that time. And the idea for Crazy Eights is that you're supposed to prioritize quality over quantity for now. Okay, you need to produce many ideas. We can refine them and filter them out later on, but for now, produce more ideas that you want. So what I did is I asked them to, when the time is up, I asked them to take a photo of their sketch and save it in the Google slide that I shared with them. And then choose one that you think best solves the problem. I asked them to choose one that best solves the problem. They were working on this alone, although there were a lot of people in the webinar. I choose for now that for them to do this by themselves rather than to ask them to group together. Maybe in the next following sessions, I might ask some participants to work together, but for now, one person lang muna. In actual UX design teams, they again vote for what they think is the best solution to apply. Next, prototyping. So in prototyping, when you have chosen a solution, you create a prototype, meaning a physical representation of your idea. Now, the purpose of this is so that when you present it to users, to potential customers, at least they have something to see, they have something to hold in the case of when you're meeting someone personally. But right now, since we can't meet people physically, they can only see the design. So I asked them to make a paper wireframe. So what's a paper wireframe? From the name paper wireframe, you draw something. You draw something, as here's the image of what seems like to be a phone screen. And here's the legend. When you use a rectangle, a thin rectangle like this, it represents text. When you use a shape with an X inside, it's either an image or video. When you use a circle, that's an avatar or a profile picture. Usually we can see this in social media. And then it is either an oblong or a rounded edge rectangle. That's a button. So I asked them to draw it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it. They had 10 minutes to work on the paper wireframe, and I think that was it was enough naman to to refine their idea. And then testing. So for testing for now, I asked them to take a picture, post it inside a slide, the slide that I shared with them. And that is where they're going to put the details of their work. And I even asked them to explain their problem solution and to ask other participants to give feedback. What do they think about a certain solution to a problem? So that's already a form of testing. Okay, so that's where the slide ends. And so basically, I ended after the testing phase. There's also you gather feedback and you go back again to what we call as the understand phase. Because when you gather feedback, you go back to the understand phase, and what you do is on this part is that since you have a feedback already, you try to improve or to alter things, something about the design, or you might pivot to something else, to something else entirely based on the feedback that you get. So the idea of design thinking, it's of UX design, is to find proof, evidence of a problem, propose a solution to it, make a prototype, and to test it with users. So it just goes around that cycle. It's recommended that it go around for 3 or 2, that there will be 3 or 2 UX cycles before you launch a certain product. But again, it doesn't end there. Even if the product is already a fully made web application, of course, you still need to gather feedback about it. So that's the idea of UX design. So I hope anyone who's watching this video, you learned something. And I will be posting other videos explaining in detail more things about each stage of doing UX design. See you again.